so we'll crack on. I think try and finish early. Rami's already messaged to say, do we want to join the keynote again at 4:45? But probably not. So I'll just go on the phone and go, yeah, enjoy the sunshine at the pub. Great. So I'm going to talk about Power Platform and what to use and why, just and talk about if I was doing it all again, what I do, and then reasons why you shouldn't. But just ask questions. So quick little bit about me. I'm Rich Burdes. Days. I was in the Champions program with Microsoft for 5 years, which was way back. We could build Power Apps when no one else was building them. They'd find you, Microsoft would find you and send you an email. I was building an app for Foodstuffs, I think, at the time, and they found me on a Foodstuffs account, and then they thought I worked at Foodstuffs, and they found I was a consultant, and still managed to stay with them. So that means you get to be on phone calls at 5, 6 a.m. in the morning every other week, talking about learning from the product team, and gives you another way in to ask questions or find out what's happening and give feedback. Same as the MVP program as well. So I've been in the business applications side of the MVP program as well for a while, but I'm only business applications is like the big spread of everything, and no one's across everything. So we all just work in our little silos of what we work on. And mine's mostly Canvas apps and Power Automate, right? With a bit of Power Pages and a little bit of model, but not much with that. Whereas others will be totally in other spaces. So as a business applications MVP, we all live in the Slack community, which is the first rule of that is there is no Slack community where the MVPs will hang out and talk about Microsoft, because we don't do it in teams. And we just share knowledge with each other in that area. That's all NDA. But it's a good place. And loads of the business application people, MVPs that come from Dynamics, are all trying to learn Canvas apps and Power Automate. Now, how does that work? How do I connect the Dataverse? And those MVPs that come from SharePoint and that kind of world into the other side of the fence are all trying to learn how to do model-driven and Dynamics integration, right? So everyone's learning, everyone's on a journey, so no one's got everything. So just like all you guys, doesn't matter, right? So just you know what you know, but try and share it and try and talk to someone who can help you, or help. If you know something, don't be afraid to share it, because everyone's got the same questions, and we're all trying to just work it out, and we get better by working together. The other side. So yeah, Steve mentioned I've got a YouTube channel, but I haven't put anything on it for a year, so I will now. But I'm help run the local meetup group for Power Platform or for business applications. So I always looking for speakers and try and meet every couple of months to talk about stuff. And so just is for all of us to share and learn, right? So don't come in and pitch, just come in and share. So selling by telling, whatever it is, however that one is if you're a consultant. All right, so let's just crack straight into this. I came with a pre-prepared question for I've actually got, because of the last speaker, we've got heaps to give away. I've got these Microsoft Dynamic things, but the pens aren't branded. Probably better than the Stratos pens. Maybe. I don't know. They're black. And I've got 3 T-shirts. So I'll do the question. I'll do another question, right? So who can tell me what that logo is? On in. Just shout it out. It's AI Builder. Woo, new. They spent $1 million to make that. So do you want to come and get a T-shirt or something at the end, right? You get to see, so all the new logo, it's all been redone, all the Power Platform. They've even got a logo for Power Platform and a logo for Power FX now. And it'll probably change in 2 years for another $1 million. But yeah. Anyway, so what we're going to cover today, going to do real quick overview of where Power Platform's come from, where it's going, where I think it's going. Feel free to challenge, question, any of that. That's great. Why you should use it. So that's all basically talking what's going on, what's moving forward. The whole focus of this is about being pragmatic with whatever you do. And I think it was mentioned earlier, just because you can doesn't always mean you should, right? Just take the one thing you take away from this, that, right? And then so why you should, why you shouldn't. If I was doing it again, we'll use an example to step through what options exist for you, and then just nuggets and Q&A stuff. So always happy to answer any questions as they come along. So the first thing, whenever you get a Power Platform challenge, and I am going to talk about Power Platform, not a Dynamic, sorry, Michael, but just because that's all I know. So whenever you get a project for Power Platform, just build one of these, right? Just build a toothbrush. I want a toothbrush. Make a toothbrush. Just make one and maybe put a bit of color on it, right? Make it recyclable. Don't build that. Sorry. The ultimate toothbrush of everything, which I think it does other stuff, and all your users will look like that. Because you can get caught up in, oh, we could just add this, and we could add another screen, and we could do magic, and it would just work. But then you throw it in front of users, and they don't know what to do because there's, well, I won't say 800, but there's lots of fields to fill out. And so where do you start, right? So what's the focus? What are you trying to get from it? So just, try and stick in the swim lane of what you're asked to build, and you can grow it, but then always try and stay focused on what you want to try and achieve with your business, right? Just keep it simple all the time. Start small. For everyone that's learning the Power Platform, same thing, right? When you're learning, just stay small, build up as you go, as you build your knowledge, right? So I hope that makes sense, and I'm really sorry for taking the mick out of that guy, but I don't know if I put that in my mouth. Anyway, so quick overview with new logos. So that's the new logo for Power Platform, right? And it's a 5-legged stool. So back in the day, it was a 3-legged stool. Now it's 5 as a table with one in the middle. They've got Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, Power Pages. So Power Pages is just reskinned portals, pretty much, but it's still Power App behind the scenes. And it was super expensive, and it still is super expensive to use. So expect that space to change on the right-hand side. Power Virtual Agents have had some uptake, but not heaps of uptake. But Power BI is where everything began. Then Power Apps, Power Automate, and that's changed heaps of flavors over time. And then as an overview of what this stuff is, it's forms, workflows, insights, bots, external portals, right? It's all software as a service, so SaaS. You don't control any of it. It just gets new changes get pushed at you. Well, Power BI I think is monthly. Power Apps is almost weekly. Same as SharePoint, right? There's SharePoint Online, that's going to be weekly as well. So just remember, whenever you're building stuff, there's always going to be new things, and Microsoft will keep telling you there's new things because it's the shiny effect, right? It's like, oh, look what's coming. And then lots of stuff they'll give you will potentially be not quite match fit. So don't use preview features in production. You're going to avoid it. But definitely all the stuff that you can see is coming, just know that it's there, but try and stick with the steady stuff that you've tested and actually works. The licensing is going way more complicated, and it will stay that way for the foreseeable future. The big push is, I'll tell you in a bit, but basically it's integrations to Dataverse and Azure, right? That's where Microsoft has its money. That's where it's put its bets. So you will still get SharePoint stuff. We'll still get Excel connectors and stuff, but they want you in Dataverse because it's extra revenue and it's easier. And they will improve Dataverse in terms of those folks that like SQL, make it a bit easier if you're a SQL junkie to be able to talk to Azure, because Azure's, well, SQL and Dataverse are kind of both the same, but one's slightly harder to get to than the other one, right? There is the beginnings of the common language of Power FX, which is why it's got a logo. You've got all those products, and they all do things differently because they've all got different teams that don't talk to each other across their silos. And then even within the Power Apps group, there's all the different flavors of a Power App, and even those folks don't talk. And we spoke earlier about the apps that exist for Android and iOS and Windows, again, and they're all featured different. So expect that to improve. The good thing about the Power Platform as an overview is the connectors you can talk to. So low-code connectors, there's heaps out there, and you can build your own custom connectors, right? If you've never built a custom connector, some of the stuff that Sophia showed us in terms of building an app, register an app in Azure and have that as an endpoint and try and talk to it, right? With a custom connector. So the Office graph is a really easy one to connect to. As long as you've got permissions in your organization to do it, or spin up your own dev tenant to do it. You can pull back all the information. So normally in Office 365 user search, you'll get back just the core data of a person, but then you've got all the extra AD properties and extension attributes you get if you're syncing up from on-prem AD stuff. You can bring all that back by a custom connector, pull in by Power Automate and do stuff with, or in the Power App itself. That's a cool thing to look at, and definitely a place to explore. Ever really low code? Don't know, but you can do heaps with it, but it's definitely no longer low code. And they've realized that, yes, they haven't got enough developers to build stuff, but yes, the citizen developers aren't necessarily going to meet the market as well, right? The demand of what's needed. So they're trying to build a world where everyone can play together in hybrid teams, right? Fusion teams, I think, is the key word. And you can step a long way for sure before you get into trouble, right? So then when you call trouble, who do you call? There you go. Who said that? Get a t-shirt. Come on. Come on. So we're giving 2 t-shirts away now. That's great. Okay, so where's the capital come from? So the clue is in the picture. The t-shirt. Who said cloud? Who said the cloud? There we go. T-shirt 3 given away. We've got 3 books left now, right? All right. And then if you're lucky, Steve will sign one. Okay, so back in the day, it was just 3 amigos, right? They just Power BI, which had been around for about a year before Power Apps, Power Automate came along, and it's common data service, which is like no one knew anything about, and it was SharePoint because it was SharePoint Online's arrived. InfoPath was cool, but now it's not really going to be around much longer. Everyone used InfoPath, right? She did. Yes, it did. Great. But then how do you make the form online now? So I was another story. I was in a Microsoft session years ago, and they were showing the new demos of what these forms technologies could be. And there was one that was close to Power Apps, which it became that, which is kind of cool to see that way back, which is cool. But they needed a way to do that, and they needed a way to replace SharePoint Designer workflows and other workflows that you could have used with Visual Studio as well back in the day on the on-premise world. So those were all born, and then I know it's only 2 minutes, but then we'll go a bit longer. New logos, obviously. Dataverse popped along, Common Data Service, Power Virtual Agents came along. They didn't really come along at the same time. This D thing, they became owners of the Power Platform. So behind the scenes, Dynamics owns the whole bag. Didn't used to, but now they do, which is why the licensing got so complicated, man. They ruined it for everybody. But that's, and just keep thinking that D thing, because that's where all of this is headed. So everyone's fully aware, because it's Dynamics and Power Platform, but then it'll probably become like, Power Dynamics or Dynamic Power or something. It's going to happen, right? And then the 5th partner came along, and then in terms of what's out there, the current world, there's Power BI is pretty stable. So feature enhancements, right? So lots of enhancements where you still need the one thing you put on your desktop, and then you update it whenever you want to update it, right? And you can talk to other third-party apps off it. And then the kind of fiddly hooked drug dealer stuff that Microsoft does is in SharePoint, visualize this data, visualize this list, I think is a new feature.
Just go there to Dynamics as well.
I have, yeah. And it's free for 30 days. And then now you can pay. And then Power Apps has gone mental. Basically, used to be just like kind of SharePoint, standalone, and model. And then you've got your custom pages coming, which you need model for. So if you're thinking of learning, then that's an area to be aware of to learn, because Canvas and then to learn that. But then database teams, and then the wrap apps as well, which is a combination of Canvas apps, which you can push out to mobile through whatever that tool is, that you push out stuff. Can't remember the name, don't worry. Thank you, Intune. And it will, rather than using the Power Apps app on your device, you can put your own app, like icon on, and it'll just load, and it'll authenticate against you anyway. So you just log in once.
Is there any North American environment?
Put it out here. Yep. Initially it was, but they have rolled it out globally. So, yeah. But so what you can do with that is you can put a series of Canvas apps into one thing. So the nurture app that you can, if you ever go on Microsoft and you can learn about it, is sort of like 6 different apps all wrapped into one. But you click on it and it opens up the first app, but then you've got access to the other 6 apps in the same thing. It's still a bit poor. Sorry, I hope Microsoft aren't going to listen to this. But anyway, so you've got each app is its own app. So each app has to reload. It's not like it just opens. It's like another tab. You've got 6 different apps. Then you've got that little thinking dots thing as the app loads on the screen. You're still going to see that, but you can combine them and push them up. And then, Power Virtual Agents hasn't changed much, but Power Automate has. You've got Process Advisor, flows and teams more now, and then your desktop flows, which are coming along as well. So they're going to expect more and more space, but expect that to be also trying to think for you a little bit, kind of visualize your data and what are you trying to do today? Whatever. That stuff. So on that theme, so where is this all going, right? With Microsoft, where are they trying to go? Just me. No, I haven't showed anything that's NDA, Steve. It's all right. So where are they going? So if you listen to the keynotes at Ignite, all the slides, there's no slides about just Dynamics and just Power Platform, right? They're on the same page now. So that's, and they're almost getting parity with the logos. So if you can see that sign, then you know it's all going to stay in that space. And it is all about let's make one massive ecosystem to help you. And then behind the scenes of that, they call it Microsoft Cloud, which has got platform, Dynamics, Microsoft 365 Teams, right? And then you develop dev tools. So that's the space where we're all going to be playing in, and there's going to be ways to talk to that data all the time, right? So that's there, all backed up by the data source of your choice. So Dataverse is one, SQL is the other, anything in Azure, all that stuff. But it is, I have no idea what those are, by the way. So don't ask a question about that. But that space, M365, Power Platform, Dynamics is all just becoming one big homogeneous, pick what you want, pick a mix, and how you can be skilled enough to do that and know that and understand it is going to be a challenge. So in terms of their global theme, so what they say, and I did laugh when they said that one, basically they want you allowed to do more with less, which is understanding the pandemic and then also possible kind of world getting a bit worse next year, budget's a bit tighter. So obviously, you just put it into the cloud and it'll be cheaper and we'll save money. But then Microsoft will charge you more. So does it even out? That's the question. They want you to be able to innovate quickly and remain resilient, which is cool. So you can survive stuff and you can make changes, pivot quickly. It's a bit like Michelle said in the keynote. So that's not working, move to that. So we can move quickly, prototype quickly. The new ways to engage with customers is just going to be all their existing products with a new logo. And they can access it more. But the empower all employees is big. I was on a call once where they spoke about everyone can make Excel, everyone can use Excel, right? So everyone should be able to use Power Automate or Power Apps. But then, my mum can't use Excel. Right. So then, in your organisation, the ability to use Excel, apart from Thomas, is a mixed bag, right? And like 3 people in Christchurch write macros, and they're all here. So all that kind of the world vision of Power Apps and everyone can do it versus the reality of it is going to be completely different, but everybody will have access to it and they're going to make it a lot more easier to be able to jump in and cause trouble in your organization. So which is why the governance stuff is really important. If you haven't got it in place, even just defining what are we going to use this for, it's just the first step, right, to do that. And then they're aware that people want to reduce their costs and complexity, but then they're going to roll with Dynamics, which is really complex, and then it's going to charge you heaps. But anyway, so that one, that was funny when I said that. What does it mean? So it says heavy push towards Dataverse. Going to get more and more connections with it across all the ecosystems. So those 4 things: Teams, Power Platform, Dynamics. Everything's going to be Dataverse driven behind the scenes. You will still be able to talk to SQL and all those other rich data sources, but the preferred choice will be Dataverse. And the way I see it, they will bring out the features better in Dataverse first, and then the others, like they've done previously. You can. That's just my opinion. I don't know if that's actually happened. I don't know that, but just saying it. You will get the more AI, which I know that's going to happen. There will be better options for developer integration. You can now co-author a Canvas app through Git. And you already tried that? Yeah. The majority of makers I know build their own app and then they hand it to someone, or they say, you open it and make your changes and hand it back. There's no integration, but unless you're on a Dynamics project and you're building something big and using it, so I'm toolkit to do stuff. But in terms of Canvas apps, it's like your bag, and then you give it to someone else. But we'll see how that works and changes. There'll be better options to talk with other people outside your tenant. So Portals is one of them, but also being able to co-author a Canvas app with someone outside your organization is going to be a possibility in the future as well, I see. And then governance and application lifecycle management. So the center of excellence, right? So managed instance, they'll make all the thinking and all the decisions for you, right? So for a service cost, but they'll handle all the notifications, all the messaging. They'll roll out nicely for you, so that's what you can see. And you can, if you watch the market of consultants and you wonder how many getting recruited by Microsoft, there's quite a lot moved over onto that team lately. So you can see how the Microsoft will be the biggest competitor to a lot of consultancies over time. That's what's going to happen because they're going to need so many more people to run all these workloads. We should jump onto the Michelle Sanchez train though and just go and work in the States, because I reckon that's your oyster, isn't it? Just do it. So you can pretend to work hard and you get noticed and you can do stuff. So but what does it really mean? So enforcement of limits. So the 2000 calls per day per user account. That's going to get enforced, just so you know. Not really being enforced at the moment, but it is going to happen. It'll happen in 2023, guaranteed. Yeah. If you just got a regular Office 365 license, you can, but then you've got, depending if you've got capacity, how many per app per user license you've got as well, then you might get a slightly bigger increase, but it's still going to try and roll it down to the per user, that one account doing stuff. So the growth of a service account to run 10 different workloads that do 10,000 calls a day, you're going to need to plan for changes to that. Heads up.
It's not just forced in us to work around it by creating a service account per app.
Yeah. So we're just going to think about it, how we can do it, right? So you don't flag up on the Microsoft hit list of like, let's get in touch with Fusion 5 because we noticed some things. And then older connectors are going to start working. So the first thing they'll do, there's a new one, Dataverse, right? The old Dataverse connector, you can't add that anymore. And it'll roll out globally, but you can still maintain the existing ones. But if you want to make a change to your workflow that's touching that particular connection, that's not going to happen. You need to plan to change it. And then feature parity between the old connector and the new connector might be different. So you just got to think planning. All the apps, everything's going to be changing. So how much do you do? How far do you go with it? But just be aware. And they do tell you in advance. So in terms of those folks in your center of excellence or who are running your governance or the consultants you're using, just make sure that they're aware, like they're building stuff, that they're aware of the changes coming, and then they've got a plan to change and update your workflows. Not that anyone wants to work in, but I've made 10,000 workflows all talking to the old Dataverse. Let's go and change them. Woo! Yeah. But they will turn them off eventually. That's the good risk of software as a service there. SharePoint Power Apps Forms is going to stay around. It's in Canvas apps, so no one's going to touch that because there's no other options for it. But I imagine the parity features there will drop slightly compared to what you can get in the more custom pages. But they will just focus on the new shiny stuff. Probably missed a word there, but don't worry about it. But again, and then like all good drug dealers, try this feature first, and then you can pay more for it when you're hooked, right? So that's going to happen on everything they've got. Just so you know, it'll stay complex with all those hooks, and it's all right not to be able to keep up with everything because no one has got a good handle on anything across the platform. No one's got all those things. And so just use this community, use consultants around you, use anyone that knows anything, use YouTube to figure out who's got knowledge and then tap into that if you have the need for it. But try and stay in your own area where you know you kind of want to play, and then find others to come in and help because it's all collaboration, right? There's no one person, no one agency is going to be able to handle everything. So what we can do to survive, think about all your old stuff that you built. It's been around 5 years, right? So there's a lot of stuff that's kind of like, ooh, could do that better, but also going to need to do it better because it's going to get turned off maybe. Have your governance in your swim lanes. It's like the third people that said that now. So everybody twigged with that. We know to get that. So we talk about governance, right? It's always going to be a journey. It's never an end, like as it changes. But it is basically we're going to use Power Apps to build back office functions only, right? We're not going to build Power Apps to do real time reporting on students or our financials, right? I wouldn't. If you guys want to, then go for it. But that sort of stuff. And then also, if somebody asks to use a premium feature, what do we do? So what's our plan if someone wants to talk SQL? Do we enable SQL to our people? Yes, all right, let's do it. But then who's going to pay for the cost? So just think, like break it down to the like what ifs moments in terms of governance, and then you're halfway there, right? Doesn't need to be 800-page document that no one's going to read, but just like the what if moments so you can plan for it, right? Stay with the community. So everyone here is hopefully in the meetup group. Get together, we talk, we hang out. Do it every couple of months. Try to try and suggest topics, ask questions. That's what we need everyone to hang out and do stuff. Because better together. And we're all kind of like we've got different consultancies in the room, but apart from CCOA, everyone else is pretty good with each other. Hey George. No, so everyone tends to get on. Generally, and we all know we're all good. So just consultants in the meetups is totally fine because we're all just trying to hang out, share knowledge because we need people, and it's not going to work without us, without everyone chipping in. And again, in terms of that, your skills, what you know, that's really important. What you've got, and you share that with someone, but also don't try and learn everything because that's not going to work. But if you're trying to learn something, try and find people to go and talk to figure out, to help you on the journey, right? And that can be someone in another consultancy, someone in so MVPs in the world. We're like signed up to be able to give knowledge to people, right? So you can ask us questions, doesn't matter who you are, right? So we're just there to help. That's the key point. And just know who to follow. So yes, so Reza, he's working for Microsoft now, so he's going to be a bit more on the Kool-Aid than normal, but still going to be getting good information out there to people, and he's really dynamic. There's other folks in Aussie and in New Zealand that will push stuff out, and we'll try and build a list in this meetup group for people to kind of tap into. I would say Paul Fahady, but he's not here. Maybe he's online, don't know. Going a bit dark on the platform, but he's okay now. You're right. But the key thing is, there's going to be loads of change, and just be happy with the change, right? It's going to happen. You're not going to get everything you want. You're going to need to customize some stuff, and not everything's going to be a Power App or a workflow or a Power BI report or Living Dynamics, right? You need to just be able to be able to react and just pivot as needed. So, any questions on that? First of all, I use the PowerPoint stock photography stuff. It's useful. All right. So when should you challenge me as much as you want? But if you've got Office 365 and Azure already, then it's pretty good. You can just go straight in there and you can build those back office functions. As long as you're saying governance for us is back office, then that's cool. And if you've got Dynamics or Business Central, then you can do more with it, right? You get more licensing and you can do more activities. Both come with their own sets of challenges and their own levels of complexity. Business Central and Power Automate's exciting, and you will need to use custom connectors to talk to it generally to get the data back and then do stuff with it. But that's all right. That's a good way to learn custom connectors. Also, if you're drowning in paper and you want to not drown in paper, then definitely. There are other tools out there as well, right? So ServiceNow is one of them. Right? So that's one. But if you're already paying for your 365 tenant, why pay for something else as well? Because you could do it, could work out, but business cases, right? So know where you want to try and do, figure out kind of how much cost and return you're going to get is the key thing. And you might not know at the start, but can do by just trying there initially or talking to the businesses out there. Again, I think we did approvals earlier. Thanks, Stratos. That one, so you've got that one already. If you do need rapid prototyping, you can build stuff so quickly. It doesn't have to be feature rich, but it can show the people like the idea and how that could actually work. So it does help. And again, it's never been easier to mash up data from multiple different data sources and bring them into an app or a workflow or a BI report or an agent. Anything you want, you can bring it all in. It's that's so easy now compared to what used to be 5 years ago. That was a nightmare, but now that's pretty good. Definitely, if you've got back office integration needs, and if you've got people in your business that are already making those Excel macros, talk to them, move them into their space so they become more visible, and use the center of excellence and get the governance stuff in place so that if they do leave, you're covered, right? So sort of. All right. Anyone else got any ideas of when you should?
You just like
accountants can build Power Apps, yeah.
because
Anyone can write Power Effects. No, but the old line was, what was it? Power Apps is the child of Excel and PowerPoint, right? So if you can write Excel-like formulas, then you can write Power Apps. They're going to look terrible, but do it. You can make them. But yeah, so that's where the business case AI builder came from. Finance stuff. So we get invoices every month. They all look the same, and Rich has to type them into his computer every day. Why are we doing that? Let's just come and read the thing via AI, push it straight into the data source. And then AI builder is going to have people be able to, or allow you the option to be able to have a human confirm the data before it gets finally sent through. But $500 a month, that probably saves a job. Someone, or doesn't save a job. It gives that person in that job the ability to do something else. It's more productive than what they were doing before, right? So anyway, so when you I don't know why the dinosaurs, but they're okay. So if you've got massive workflows, massive data sources that you need to be using all 100,000 rows of information coming out. So Auckland City Council wants to get a daily update on all the traffic lights that are coming in from software or information out in the field coming in. That's not a Power Automate workflow. I wouldn't want it to be. But that area, if you do need live data feeds, or if you've got, for me, challenge it. But if I've got critical data that I need to be able to make key decisions on, in a very short, rapid period of time, I don't know that I'd use Power Automate, just because depending on your licensing and depending on the type of trigger you got, I could be waiting 5 minutes before that even triggers, right? So if I need to know instantly, then there's other ways to do that. But that's fine to think of it. If you want to control everything, like you want to patch your software updates, then it's not software as a service, it's something else. And then for like Canvas apps, if you want to be able to go through larger data sources, large data sets with filter queries that are going to kind of confuse things. So Power Apps came from Microsoft's dream that mobile first, right? So everyone's going to use phones. Won't be enough developers. All use phones, and well, when you're on the phone, you don't need to look at much data because you're just going to basically punch stuff in and forget about it, right? So more Microsoft form model. But the real world, when Power Apps started to get used by more people, was it's actually on your desktop, not on your phone as much. And I want a dashboard of my stuff. And like hundreds of people are submitting stuff, and it's over 2,000 items. So how can I get my information showing just for me? Which you can do with all data sources as long as you're using the correct filtering kind of model. So equals, so what you can do in SharePoint, not greater than or date like or whatever. But other data sources support it better. So Dataverse supports it better, SQL supports it better, and again, SQL supports it better than all of them. You and I call it store procedure to bring your data back, to bring it back really quickly. That's the way to go. But I'm hoping Dataverse will be able to do that, have some parity to it to be quick. So if you want, so for an example of that, I make a call in a filter on a gallery to go and read customers. Give me customers that start with Ben, right? And then goes off into the like cloud-based at that time. So it goes off and it reads 100,000 records and then brings it back. That could be 30 seconds on the old into Database. Sorry. But if it's SQL, it could be 2 max, right? Bring it all back into a collection like I show on my screen. So that's my dream for Dataverse, that it gets better like that. I tell them every time I'm on a phone call with them. So anyway, but I know they're going to do more stuff with Dataverse, which is great. If you've got workflows where you need to run through lots and lots of files, so we've got client 100,000 documents. Go and find the ones that start with this. So that hits the delegable limit of 2,000 items. Or does everyone know about pagination in Power Automate? So if you're trying to show an OData filter query, go and find me like items tagged with Christchurch. Out of the box, I think Power Automate is going to find the first 100. And you need to go into settings for get items or get files, go into settings, get advanced, and then turn on pagination and put a number in there. And if you've got basic licensing, you can go to 5,000. If you've got bigger licensing, you go to 100,000, right? So you can cover that. So people often wonder, why isn't this finding my document? Well, turn on pagination and make sure you've got the right licensing. So big libraries gets a bit harder.
Also include Excel into lists. There's 100 rows as well.
Yeah, same thing. So yeah, if I want to get items from my Excel data source, I can still turn pagination on and I can still do that, have more. So yeah, you can make it bigger. With Excel, if I'm ever importing from Excel, don't have spaces in your columns if I'm doing a filter on that column. So I'll say I want to do OData filter in Excel where first name equals John and first and name is 2 words in the Excel column. That's not going to work. It won't find it. So just combine those words together. Yeah, I love data source for Excel. Sorry, Thomas. Excel. Yeah. If you've got external users that were involved with apps, there are other options, right? So portals is one, it's expensive. There's other options, right? So just be aware of what's out there and figure out your business case, talk to others. If you want responsive apps by default, yeah. Build a Canvas app that's responsive, it's at least 3 times the effort, right? So it's going to cost you. So yeah, avoid it if you can. Or 2 apps, right? It's cheaper. And then often a mobile app is less feature rich maybe than the big Canvas app. So we often have a model where the field worker just needs to submit data or view their own data, right? And they're only going to fill out 4 or 5 fields to do their submission. That's it, done. Whereas the people back in the office need to do a bit more data, add to it, do stuff. So they can have a desktop app and the field worker's got a mobile app, right? There's nothing wrong with that kind of approach. Doesn't have to be the same app that does stuff, right? It's already cost you 4 times as much to make it, but that's one. So yeah, when you shouldn't maybe. And if you've got like third-party apps and endpoints that you want to connect to, and you don't want to use custom connectors, but you want them API calls, there are other options to do that as well, right? So this doesn't need to be Power Automate or even a Logic app to get that data, but There are ways to do it, but all those you could argue, but then you'd be building the massive toothbrush. So just be aware. So any questions? Time check. Cool. All right. So in 10 minutes, let's finish at 4:30. If I was doing it all again, so I started in Canvas apps. That's where I began. Back when you couldn't format the data in a Canvas app and you just had to write along, basically go along, and there wasn't color coded or anything. I'd go there. For me, so if you're starting now, Power Automate. And the reason why would be just the business data improvement you can do with Power Automate. Okay, you can easily make it an app, and then everyone argues about what color it should be. But if you can bring data from here and move it to there really quickly and show a business value of that, that's gold. And so they haven't, it's not a million, Steve. Sorry, mine's like 66,000 for one of my ones. But I've made a thing about how to use Power Automate to send reminders 7 and 14. Again, it's like I put up 2 years ago, and it's still getting heaps of use every month because that's where people's knowledge is at and what they want to try and do, right? So I was doing, starting again, definitely Power Automate as opposed to all the fancy shiny stuff. Just stick with the basics. So try and learn Power Automate. There are free courses you can go on. Microsoft does them. But if you can't, then talk to the community, do engage a local person, like come up with the main thing to do when you're trying to learn Power Automate would be have a use case in your mind of what you're trying to achieve. Don't just go, I want to learn about the compose action because there's 6 bits of it and when to use which bit. But if you got like a process where you know in your business, data starts here, goes there, someone does something else happens, that's something you can start building around and you can play with the different actions inside of Power Automate to make it happen and just try and test it. That's where I'd go. And then cloud flows first. In the room, everyone was using cloud flows just about, with a few using desktop flows, but definitely cloud. You've got your instance, so triggered from a SharePoint library. Just remember to allow everyone to use the workflow from the library, the Power Apps action, and then just a manual button to push and test it, right? And then go automated, then go scheduled. Do check out the pre-existing templates. And then do try the third-party premium connectors. You can get them for a trial often. So Encodion's a really good one to use. I need to make a PDF output from a workflow, right? From data over here, data over there, or in another PDF from someone's library. So we had a client, we only want to get one attachment. We don't want to have 4 attachments in our output. So it's like a reimbursement thing with all the receipts. I don't want 6 receipts. I want 1 file with all the receipts. So Encodion does that, right? So it'll take a whole bunch of files and put them into one PDF for you. And if it's a small organization and you're going to do it less than 50 times a month, it's free, right? Done. Test it, use the tool. And there's about 70 different other actions you can use with Encodion that would help. So there's loads of PDF type stuff. So I know there are folks here that use it, so it's cool. And you can pay more to get more functions, but that one's good. The populate Word from a template, it's a Microsoft one, premium, but that's a really good one as well, right? So if you try and make a PDF from HTML use a OneDrive connector and make a PDF that way, then you're always going to portray PDF, never going to make a landscape one. It's always going to be going to run over pages, potentially. If you use the Word template one, then you can lay them out a little bit better, and you can kind of keep those tables together so that the printout looks better. So it's cool, and for like $10 a month, that's definitely worth investing if it's got business value, right? So try that. And so my go-to connectors, you can shout out ones you use, but time and date, substring, are these SharePoint heaps with OData filters. Use the email one, heaps, obviously. Apply to each switch, compose variables, and then the copy. Although if you're doing copy, you can't do it in a switch, just so you know, because it won't work. There's a few things like that won't work. Yeah, you could, but never remember. But
this copy, is it working now? You know, it used to be real buggy. We couldn't take from one part of the flow into another, so you have.
So the only place where it doesn't work is in a switch statement. If I've got a switch action, that's the one that you can't move it across. But Benji gave us an answer already. Community. So basically,
double clicking as well if this plays up.
Oh, I've done this to another error.
keep clicking and then start hitting it even harder.
Right, I just think error.
So copy then in the switch and then move outside it. Yeah.
Drag it into the switch.
Okay. John.
And if you're copying lots of things, drag it into the scope, copy the scope, and then you.
Oh.
Based on copying 6 different actions.
So just remember that. Call that the Benji. Just remember that. Good. So yeah, so those are the ones I use. SharePoint OData filters. Just remember, sometimes in modern SharePoint, the column name that you see on the screen isn't the column name that OData wants to look at. So to find the real column name, and probably the same with database as well. Sometimes you've got to go into the end field, go into the list library and find that list and click it and look in the URL for the, it was called, now it's called subject, but it was originally called title. Someone changed it. So the subject's not working. So you go to title, find it. All right. Cool. Good. We're going to fly through this real quick, but the screens are all there and you can look at the code later and we can talk about it. But trying to learn an expression. So this is a deliberately hard one. I'm sorry. But if you want to find Monday, what was the date of Monday this week? So the reason for this, we had a client timesheeting application, always needs to be what's the week commencing, right? So it needs to be automated. I'm not going to build a list of Mondays in SharePoint, because why would I? Or I can go look stuff up. So the building blocks I'm allowed to use would be expressions and expressions plus my low code actions. There's a few ways to do it. And again, don't build the massive toothbrush. You could, but there's no need to, right? So options you've got available within the expression stuff: format, date, time, add days, subtract from time, and a day of week. So if you've never used those functions in Power Automate's expressions, they're actually cool in a geeky kind of way. But you can say what's the day of the week, and it will tell you. And you can say, give me a number or give me the date. So you can find stuff, but then you can say what's today's date, and then what was Monday's date. You can kind of work out. You can go back to it. I didn't explain that very well, but anyway, you could use UTC now in your expression. Who can tell me what the possible problem of using UTC now would be? Yeah. So if I run it in the morning, that's cool. But if I run it later in the day, it's not going to find that Monday, possibly. So you can do a formula like that, and you're going to return back the 24th for the 10th. I don't know if that was the last Monday, but maybe it was. But basically, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, give me date time. So format date time is really only going to give me year, month, day, day, right? So I can call it SharePoint, right?
All the date time functions.
Okay, you can go now. Oh, no, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. There you go. Yeah, just it's very thin skin. But that's all we're doing there is we're taking the days for now. Give me whatever number that was, and then the day of the week, day, number, and then subtract that back. And so you could write that. That will only work in the mornings for New Zealand. So then you change it, right? So well, why would I write that? Hey, well, you want to write that? So basically, then I can do, give me the format, but then take UTC now out of it, and I can say make it New Zealand time zone, and then keep repeating that. But that's not low code, is it? So why? So you could do it, but then you need to go online. You need to understand how New Zealand standard time, like it. So Microsoft's got the list of all the time zones and how they present it, and they're all different, right? But could do it that way, which would work, give you the same date, but it's just a pain. Or you just stay low code as much as possible. You still need expressions, but you can go low code, right? So that's when you'd use the current time and the substring. Everyone know about those two functions? Substring, super easy. That's the easiest cheat you'd ever get. So that's the second thing you can take away from today's session. And I can't really show you that very well, but I'll go into substring. So substring, all I'm going to do there is I'm going to get the current time, which will give me UTC time, right? So if I do it in the afternoon, it's going to give me the wrong date. So I need to convert that time zone, but it's a real easy method. Just convert it back, and I put it into the UTC format. So it's going to be year, month, day, and then all the time, date, in minutes and seconds afterwards. So then I use substring to say start at 0 and give me the first 10 characters, right? So it gives me everything I need for a date. For date for SharePoint, right? Because it's always going to be the same. It's always year, month, day, and I can do a filter on it. And then just use that convert substring stuff. So then my formula, and then if you're building a formula with other previous outputs, you can just start typing it, and then you can click on dynamic content and just select the item, right? It just does it. So the expression builder is going to change March, February next year. It's on the release notes, which means it's probably more like August next year, but it will happen. And if you want to see what it looks like, you can do a preview of it. And then the really, really good expression builder at the moment out there is on, I don't know why it's on there, but the Power Virtual Agents. They've got a really, really cool way to build your expression editor, and it just highlights it, gives you the right syntax. It's really cool, and that's where hopefully you're going to get. But at the moment, you can just click dynamic content, select the item, and it does it. So then we've got like, it looks the same, but I built it a lot easier. So all I need to worry about was my subtract and time stuff. So I still need to use some expressions, but I can cheat a little bit in terms of trying to figure out massive long bits of code. Wasn't a very good example anyway. But anyway, the next thing I do will be Power Apps, and I'm going to finish before I get into too much detail. I still go Canvas apps, and then I would go model, and then I go Canvas with SharePoint, just because they're a little bit different in terms of the SharePoint integration action inside of every form you might customize. But definitely Canvas still. And if I was doing it again, Canvas are easy to learn the model, mate. Sorry. Yeah, definitely.
I strongly disagree.
Yeah. And then just in terms of this market, definitely more Canvas apps down in Christchurch than there are, say, in Wellington. Lots more model-driven apps up there. And it all comes sort of 50-50. But model's still very important. And if you think about the journey Microsoft wants to take us on, then definitely you need to learn it, you need to know about it, at least be able to make some things with it if you can. And then just for Canvas, you still relevant, and it still makes way better forms than what you currently got today. And then things like focus. So storyboarding, what I want to do. So don't just jump into an app and just decide this is how it's going to do. So talk to people, figure out, go out and talk to users. So the electrician folks, go out with them, understand it before you even build anything, right? We have to do that with, not that I'm going to go on deep sea fishing with people, but go and learn with them, try it there. And just understand what they're trying to do, what limitations they might have, and then what I'm actually trying to achieve and what's important. And then because I'll find that I'll get 80% of the way with the Canvas app, and then the last 20% is really tough. So if I can squeeze down the really tough stuff and just keep in the 80, and they're happy, that's probably enough, right? Pragmatic. And then definitely users. So again, simple input, maybe form, basic one, and then larger. How much data is coming in, how much they really need. Like, do I need to give them whole loads of questions or not? And then Vanessa, we're talking this through. So you can build a massive long screen, like a scrollable screen. Everyone used that in Canvas apps. So you used to be able to have a scrollable screen with sections, and you could copy and paste a form into it. But that's not supported anymore. It won't work. So now, if you want to put fields into the scrollable screen, you've got to hand roll every input you want to put in there for the new and then for edit. So that sucks. And that's because of the custom pages need moving towards. So it doesn't work. You can put them maybe in a component, depending on how your tenant's been updated. It may work, it may not work, but know that it's not going to work. So you'll need to change it in the future anyway. So that's going to change. So that sucks. So the way around that is, well, let's build, rather than scrolling, let's build tabs. But let's limit to how many tabs you can have, because there's only so much space on the screen. I'm not going to carry tabs over there, right? So bring them back, keep them simple, and maybe a bit of scrolling on the screen is good. And then what we always do is always allow for a new, then a save it plus edit it feature, and then the submit option, and then an admin possibly. So we have 3 buttons on a lot of the stuff we do. If you ever watch any of my clips, they've all got that kind of guidance. So it's, a few people overseas use it as well, so it's definitely a easy way. And just stick with your one-headed toothbrushes, and then extend the toothbrush just for yourself. Like you can copy an app and you can play with it and do stuff with it, but always have a dev app and a production app. Dev app on SharePoint is on a site called Dev SharePoint. Prod SharePoint. There's no dev environment as such anymore, but do that. And I'm going to stop because I'm not going to talk about model-driven apps. But sorry, I don't know enough about it.
You don't have to worry about UI or UX. It all takes care of it for you.
Yeah. So the final thing to close out. So when you first started doing Power Platform, you had to go out there and just try and learn it yourself because there's no one else around you to do it. Now there's way more people, so but it's still tough to do it on your own. So make allies, make friends, learn from people, make connections, right? So Michelle said, like, make friends, right? Rather than networks. There's heaps to learn. Don't always go with the shiny, because there's stuff that's actually useful to know and have bedded in as what you can do. Always think in terms of business use cases. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, but what you're trying to achieve, right? Every time, what's the value? If I put this in, what's it going to do? Keep it simple, be pragmatic. Don't build unsupportable systems where one thing might break everything. Don't do that. If you're doing that in Power Automate, always have an on-fail action as well. So always have, if it fails, what do I do? So I know it's happened, because debugging or being notified of a failed workflow in Power Automate isn't great. Because some other global tenant admin might get a message saying 3 weeks later, oh, your workflows are failing. What do you want to do about it? It's already failed. But yeah, and also be prepared to fail, and it's okay to ask for help, definitely. There's way too much to have all the answers, and it's changed quickly. So just tap into this community, right? Get the answers. We are happy to help. Breathe. And then, yeah, make Power Automate your closest ally would be my suggestion. One thing to take away. That'd be it. Does anybody want one of these? We gave away the other stuff, right? So the t-shirt's done. That's it. Thanks for coming. Hope feeling all right. Long day. Did get a bit cold. I didn't get cold, but I know some people did get cold. Sorry.
Ladies have a tolerance for 10 minutes.
I was watching you all shivering. It's like, oh no, this isn't good.
You know, this is actually, there's a scientific reason. It is because your bodies are designed to keep your muscles warm so that you can run around. Women's bodies are designed so our internal organs are tough.
Cool. You gotta love science, right? All right. Has anyone got any questions that was just useful? Does anybody want to stay around for 15 minutes and join the keynote to see our closing? You can say no. You can just go. It's good enough to go. I'll just say goodbye to Rami. It's like, see you, mate. Thanks very much. But just so we'll do another meetup in a couple of months, I guess, after Christmas. Do it February. I think after Waitangi, then everyone should be back. We're going to do more of the SharePoint stuff. So Steve's going to help run SharePoint user community as well with us. So we're going to try and get some more things in there. So just be aware, because that's an area. And then we've got, so Power Platform community covers a bit. We need to get more dynamic speakers, Michael. Yep. But just, yeah, any of that stuff. So it's going to be a bit more activity, but just try and keep what you've learned today. Keep talking to people you've met. If you haven't met someone today and you want to figure out who they are, just go and talk to them before they leave. That's useful. All done. You can leave if you want. Just go.
Before we do that.
Yep.
Thanks for asking.
Yes. Thank you, mate. Hope it was useful. I hope everyone got something at least. There's quite a big spread of what we spoke about today, so there's heaps. But hopefully you met people that can help you with whatever you're trying to do. Right.